Good evening, everyone. The Durham Public Schools Board of Education regular monthly meeting is now in session. At this time, we wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to inform our parents, staff, and constituents about the work aligned with our mission to embrace, educate, and empower every student to innovate, serve, and lead. Tonight, the administration will be presenting information to keep you up to date on our strategic plan. The interpreters for tonight are Martha Ginsmer Ramirez and Martha Romo Ugirles. Ms. Ginzer Ramirez is an ESL teacher at Jordan High School and Durham School of the Arts. Ms. Romo Ugirles is also a Durham Public Schools ESL teacher and has a master's in TESOL. She has 35 years of experience that includes 17 years of teaching and interpreting in the United States.
Soy Marta Ramírez.
Soy Marta Romo y estamos aquí para prestar servicios de interpretación en español para quien lo necesite. Gracias.
Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. The next item on our agenda, as we get started, is a moment of silence. Please join me as we start our meeting in a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is celebrations.
If my colleagues will permit me to poke fun, I think we got a little pre-Thanksgiving sluggishness after a delicious meal getting down here to the red carpet tonight. We were treated this evening, as we are monthly, with a wonderful chance to engage with our community members over dinner. And tonight's dinner was provided by the Jordan High School Culinary Department. It was fantastic. If I read the menu, I'd make you too jealous, so we won't do that. But the chance to engage with community around what's working and what can be improved in DPS is something that we treasure every single month. And so, as we typically do, I'd like to welcome our guests to come down, shake hands with the board, let us say thank you again, walk the red carpet. Tonight we had members of the community from W.G. Pearson Elementary School. Right here. Jordan High School. Carrington Middle School. Eno Valley Elementary. Holtz Elementary School. And some of our members here are also members of the Durham Council of PTAs. And finally, Southwest Elementary School. If I've missed anyone, please come join us.
Celebrations is my favorite part of these board meetings. I mean, what else could possibly compare? But we also want to celebrate, if you happen to watch on WRAL News earlier this week, the Durham area and indeed the Triangle are noticing what's happening in Durham public schools. And a lot of that is due to the gumption, the creativity, and the pride of our very own students. And we always like to open up our celebrations with the Durham Public Schools Student of the Month. Student of the Month program spotlights students who distinguish themselves with character and integrity, who are active in their schools and community, and who maintain excellent academic standards. And tonight, we'll be recognizing the November Student of the Month. And I'm so happy to have Dr. Tanya Wright, principal of New Tech High School, to come up and introduce our Student of the Month.
Great evening, everyone. It brings me great pleasure to stand before you this evening to present our Student of the Month. Our Student of the Month is Miss Samia Powell. She is an exceptional sophomore at Hillside New Tech High School. She was selected to be our Student of the Month because of her demonstration to set attainable goals, not only at high school level, but at a college level as well. Not only does she perform well in her New Tech High School classes, she performs extremely well in her Durham Tech classes as well, currently maintaining a 4.1 grade point average. Samia plans to attend Howard University or Spelman University, where she aspires to be a civil engineer. She is an agent changer as well in the New Tech community. She currently serves as president of the sophomore class and is a member of the Future Business Leaders of America. She is also a member of the fantastic Hillside High School drama department. When she is not completing work and affecting change at New Tech, she can be found doing community service with her church's youth group and performing with its Mind Ministry. She loves dancing, traveling, and spending lots of time with her family. We are extremely proud of Samia's commitment to making it happen in the New Tech school community and the Durham community. Without further ado, I present to you our Student of the Month, Ms. Samia Powell.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by just saying thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much. I thank God for this opportunity. And I was surprised today. I didn't know that my grandmother and great aunt would be with me to see me. But I thank you so much, especially to both of my parents. Thank you guys so much for your love and your support and the sacrifices that you have made for me. Thank you also to, I call her my third parent, but my older sister, Sarita. That's my role model, and she just continues to encourage me to do my best, and just to live the right life. I thank you that I have all my grandparents with me, my grandmas, as well as my aunt, my great aunt. Thank you so much for y'all love and your support, and just, continuing to love me, and you guys have just been on this journey with me, so I thank you so much. And thank you to Durham Public Schools for this opportunity. I was very surprised, and it was just such an unexpected blessing. But I thank you guys so much for just this great opportunity and allowing me to be Student of the Month of November, which was actually my birthday month as well.
I love it when we do Student of the Month. I love it even more when we need a wide-angle lens for the family picture. I would now like to ask Dr. Nakia Hardy, Deputy Superintendent of Academics, to come up and introduce our next celebration.
Good evening, board members. Just as Mr. Sutter said, celebrations are some of the most exciting part of our board meetings. It is my honor, my pleasure, and my privilege to present to you our finalist for the Durham Public Schools Principal of the Year and our 2020 Principal of the Year. We all know how important excellent teaching is. It's the most powerful lever for high student achievement. So excellent principal leadership is the most powerful support mechanism for ensuring that our teachers are able to operate at their best for our children every day. Our board and our administration have been intentional in supporting educational leadership among both teachers and principals alike. And tonight we have the great pleasure to honor 4 principals who all exemplify our superintendent's 4 guiding principles of high expectations, outstanding support, clear accountability, and celebration of success. These 4 individuals exemplify the characteristics we need to achieve each of our goals and priorities in our strategic plan. So for our finalists, when I call your name, please come down to the red carpet. Dr. Sheldon Lanier, Principal, Brogden Middle School. Mr. James Hopkins, Principal, Lakewood Elementary. Dr. Gloria Wood-Weeks, Principal, J.D. Clement Early College High School on the campus of North Carolina Central University. And now for our Principal of the Year for 2020. She has led her school to 6 years in a row of 100% graduation rate. 6 years. And as if that wasn't enough, double-digit academic growth. Dr. Tobias confronts hidden biases and empowers her students. As such, her school also ranks 5th and 2nd in the state in academic growth for our Black and Hispanic students. The theme this year at City of Medicine Academy is Education is Personal at CMA. CMA is personally led by an accomplished professional, an exceptional visionary leader, and we are so proud that she is also our Principal of the Year, Dr. Jackie Tobias.
With my apologies to the other 16 LEAs in North Carolina, nobody does the arts like Durham Public Schools. And for that reason, I would now like to ask Dr. Debbie Pittman, our Associate Superintendent of Specialized Services, to introduce our next celebration. Spoiler alert, it's about the arts.
Thank you, Mr. Sutterth. Good evening, board members, Dr. Mubenga. It's an honor this evening to spotlight our very own Arts Educations Department. We know that the arts help our students thrive, help them grow, and help them to succeed personally and academically. Durham Public Schools teachers, staff, and our community recognizes that a whole child approach to education, including the arts, helps our students continue to be the very best that they can be. Our arts education teachers are an enormous part of that equation. They provide guidance, instruction, and they support our students as they flourish. So tonight, I am here to recognize one of our many outstanding arts education faculty that we have in Durham Public Schools, Mr. Joseph Walker from Durham School of the Arts. Mr. Walker was named the North Carolina Eastern Regional Orchestra Teacher of the Year by the North Carolina Music Educators Association. I'd also like to thank and recognize his principal, Mr. David Hawks, from the Durham School of the Arts, for being here this evening to share in the celebration of this honor. Let me tell you just a little about Mr. Walker. He's in his second year with us in Durham Public Schools as the orchestra director at Durham School of the Arts, but he has been teaching orchestra for 12 years, previously in Onslow County at Southwest Middle and Southwest High School. So we're glad we have him here. He's an active clinician across North Carolina, having had the honor of conducting several student orchestras across the state. Congratulations, Mr. Walker. We are proud to have you represent Durham Public Schools.
Our Student of the Month and our Eastern Regional Orchestra Teacher of the Year both received Spark Pins in addition to their other recognitions. Our Spark Pin program acknowledges the students, the teachers, the community members, everybody involved in Durham Public Schools who are influencing, who market and engage our community and schools, who help us ignite the limitless potential of our students and our schools. And we now are presenting to you 3 Spark supporters who are administrators, non-instructional staff, and other individuals in or out of DPS who provide a foundation and expertise to support our students, our teachers, and our schools. These are 3 Durham Public Schools employees who make it happen every day. I present to you Kyle Yerby? I pronounced it right. And Gavin Bell from Information Technology. And is a little ahead of myself, sorry. And is Eric Clark from Lakewood Montessori Middle here with us tonight? We will recognize him at another date. And then next we have 2 Spark Advocates. Spark Advocates are influencers who work outside of DPS to develop community partnerships, increase engagement and support for DPS, and improve student outcomes. And we are so glad that you are part of the DPS family by extension. Carolyn Kruger from Kids Voting of Durham County. And finally, Jessica Perrin from Durham County Soil and Water the Durham County Soil and Water Conservation District. Ordinarily, this would conclude the celebrations portion of our meeting, but I think, do we have one more thing to do? I surrender the podium to our board chair.
All right. We do have one more. And so I'll say this. As board members, we're responsible for being a lot of different places, doing a lot of different things. And generally, there is one person that kind of keeps us straight. That is our board liaison. Our board liaison calls us, makes sure we can go different places. She schedules the different appeals. She schedules different panel type things. And we don't make it easy for her at all. You know, there are times when they'll ask for 3 people to sit on a suspension appeal and no one will respond. And so they have to send text messages, calls, catch them in the hall by the ear, you know, hey, we need somebody, come on, we need, and that's just one topic. That's a lot of different things that we do. It's a tough job. This is a job that actually has 8 bosses. It's the board and the superintendent, and trying to keep everybody straight with travel, with schedules, with everything. So it's not an easy job to do. And so if we could look at my cell phone records, you would see that number so many times because I'm so late and so wrong so many times. And it's only because of the board liaison that I'm able to keep things straight. And so recently we had a transition on our board liaison. She moved to the transportation department. And over the years, she's seen transition to superintendent. She's seen a lot of different things. And I think our board and the school district is better for the work that she did here for the board. And so since we won't be seeing her in her seat on our board evenings or in the closed session, I'm almost a little jealous that she gets to go home a little earlier than everyone. But we won't get to see her all the time or in her office. I wanted to give a little something special. So we just gave out the pins. I have one. These pins represent what Durham Public Schools is all about. It's about moving the district and the children forward. And without Sandra, I don't think our board would have been able to move forward over the last few years. And so we're the board. We wanted to give you just a little something to say. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. Thank you so much for keeping us on track. Thank you for what you've done for the kids, getting the things scheduled, getting us in our place. So we just wanted to bring you up as a member of the staff, no longer our liaison, to say thank you and give you a little gift from us. Sandra. We'll give you that after you. Yeah.
And that concludes our celebrations for the evening. Thank you all.
All right. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent's update. Dr. Mabenga.
Thank you, Chairman Lee, members of the board. I just realized that this is November. I've been here for 2 years already. You know, Thanksgiving is coming, so I just wanted to say thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you. And the work that has been done and the work that we're gonna do, I'm really excited to see that come to fruition. Today we had a wonderful visit from our governor in one of our middle schools, Bragdon Middle School. So the visit was great. And some of you have seen some of the pictures on social media. So it was really great to see our governor in one of our buildings. So our governor was able to engage our staff and mainly our teachers to know what are they lacking, what do they have, so that they will be able to conduct their job effectively. So it was a really good conversation. So thank you to our governor for choosing Bragdon Middle School today. I would like also to say this, as we appreciate governor's visit, and we know at this point we still have our teachers that we're not able to get what they deserve. And also we have our classified employees that don't even know whether or not they're gonna have something before they go home for their holidays. And we are working really hard to make sure at the local level so that we can do at least something to appease them before they go home for their holiday. And I think we have a plan in motion. We should be able to communicate with our staff sometime tomorrow. The last thing that I would like to comment, we had a wonderful joint meeting with our commissioners. As you all know, we grew over 500 students this year. Yes. And we celebrated that, and we can anticipate more growth coming up. But we cannot anticipate growth without thinking about building new schools. So we had a good meeting, and our commissioners, they're pretty much committed to help us to build Northern High School as well Elementary C. We were pleased with that news, but still we are not done yet because we still have Elementary F and other capital needs that need to be for discussion in our next meeting. So I just wanted to make this public that we've been moving forward as far as building Elementary C, as well the plan is in motion as well for Northern High School. Growth is coming, so we should be able to commit ourselves building more school for us. So really excited. I know next week we're not gonna have another board meeting. I just wanna say this to our staff. As I said, 2 years I have been here. I'm grateful for all the work that you're doing, and thank you for our board for your support. And all I can say, I just want to wish everyone happy Thanksgiving next week.
All right. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is agenda review and approval.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we could, I would like to have a brief conversation about the meeting schedule in December.
Okay.
So we had also talked about adding the resolution from NCSBA, but I don't see copies of it here. Did you guys have that in your?
No. Hold on, let's take one at a time here. So we want to talk about the meeting schedule. Let's do that.
And we can do it at the end if you want.
Yeah,
so
at the end,
People don't have to.
right before
stay.
closed session. Yeah. So I don't have a copy of that, that resolution. If we can get it to someone and maybe run some copies off, if we can, before we get to it, we could do that at the end as well. Can you send it to Tanya?
I'm having email issues, but Minnie thinks she's got it.
All right, we'll get that to you and then just run out some copies. 9.3. Okay, are there any other additions to this resolution? So I have a resolution from the North Carolina School Boards Association.
You got it?
No,
He's asking about it.
that's what we're gonna add on the agenda. We'll find it.
You saying, where are you gonna put that?
I was gonna put that right before the meeting schedule.
9.4?
Yeah. And then the meeting schedule conversation at 9.5, right before closed session. Are there any other adjustments? Okay. I'll accept the motion.
Approval of the agenda as amended? Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Board of Education minutes dated October 24th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second?
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the Board of Education minutes dated October 24th, 2019. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is general public comment. For general public comment, we have 4 signed up, so we'll do 3 minutes each. I believe we have some signed up on others, but we'll get to that. What's property? We'll get to that when we get there. All right. The first speaker is going to be Floyd Borden, and then Vantanya Borden. Those will be our first 2. We'll do 3 minutes each.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Evening.
My name is Floyd Borden.
No, go ahead. Go right on.
Quickly, something I'd like to bring to the board's attention is an issue that I've been encountering about sports in Durham Public Schools, from the base school model and how females are the different sports that are or are not available given the number of females athletes and how they're able to or not able to play different sports in different schools. And I've gone to the athletic director for Durham Public Schools as well as the state, the North Carolina board, and so they told me to bring this issue here. So in terms of, I know this may not be the general board or forum because they only have 3 minutes, but I need to know what next steps and who do I need to talk to get this issue addressed. I have a daughter that is basically a straight A student, and when she comes to me and says, this is all I want to do, I just want to play, and I don't have an answer for her because the sport or whatever it is that she wants to do is not available to her, I need to have answers for that. And right now, I'm not getting answers for that. So I need to know what are my next steps and what do I do to be able to take care of this issue and this problem. So please, somebody direct me or allow me to have a conversation with somebody so that we can get this resolved. So I have talked to Mr. Hackney, and he has directed me to talk to somebody here so that we can try to work through this issue and this problem.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So we're going to, Mr. Borden, Dr. Pittman is standing in the back. She's right by the door. She's going to talk with you right now, as a matter of fact. to start the conversation about that.
Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much.
Okay. Ms. Borden, do you want to, you can speak as well if you have anything to add.
Good evening. I'd just like to say real quick, being a woman and having a daughter that is not allowed to play her favorite sport, lacrosse, because her base school doesn't have it, is unheard of. Every child may not have funds or means to pay for club sports so that they can be seen and move forward into college. That's why they play at their school. But when you have a school that tells you she can't play because they don't have it, hurts her chances of being seen at a college level. Our daughter loves playing lacrosse and wants the opportunity to play for school. How do we give her and other girls an opportunity to play and advance in a well-deserved sport when she's not given the opportunity to do so? I implore you today to please look at your guidelines and change this situation around so that our daughter and other girls that do not have the sports at their base school will be allowed to play lacrosse. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And of course, Ms. Pittman's going to catch up with you there. Okay, the next two speakers is Yasha Kay. Okay, and then Brian Calloway.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
My name is Yasha Kulkarni, and I'm part of Duke's CS by Us team, and we're commissioned by NCDBI to create the first computer science curriculum for North Carolina schools all over the state. So our goal before implementing the curriculum is to gain community feedback from students, faculty, teachers, and parents, and so to better understand what curriculum would be in the best interest for the students. So in terms of our progress so far, we've been piloting some lesson plans and after-school programs, including at the Boys and Girls Club for 3rd through 5th graders. And next semester, we're hoping to also pilot some lesson plans in schools in North Carolina. So that's our goal so far. And so please, after the meeting, come reach out to us, to our team, and provide any feedback that you have about computer science in general or the curriculum, and any feedback is welcome. Thank you so much.
Is there any way that the public can contact you? Is there any way you could say it and it's being recorded, or do you guys have a general email address or a website or anything like that?
I believe we do have a website. I think it's called csbyus.org. Yeah, .org.
csbyus.org.
Yes.
.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So you can reach out to that.
Computer science. Yes. The letter C, the letter S, bias.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. And then Mr. Calloway.
All right, good evening, school board and administration. I'm Brian Calloway, former employee. Given the broad new interest on the national stage with the topic of whistleblowing, I have decided to publicly express a local subject that each of you have been fully aware of for years, but that our broader community likely does not know about. On December 1, 2016, I reported to the chair of the Operational Services Committee that I had identified over $100,000 in overpayment to the then custodial contractor Service Solutions. Previous to that whistleblowing report, I had followed internal protocol to assure that my supervisors were aware of the discrepancies. I was directly told by administrators, quote, out of your area, and I quote, DPS has a nearly $500 million budget. There's no way one person can know where every dollar is spent. As the board and administration are aware, these discussions were well documented in multiple ways. As a process-oriented, transparency-loving individual, and driven purely by a desire to see Durham Public Schools achieve operational excellence, I commend limited numbers of the board for making sure that an investigation would ensue. I actually had hope for a minute that our students and taxpayers may see an earnest pursuit of justice. In retrospect, I would now consider that thought to be naive. It seems that our representative democracies, both small and large, stand at particular risk of our institutions and their administrators being instead very quick to attack whistleblowers, to muddy the pursuits of truth, and seemingly protect their standing by obscuring obvious facts and pushing alternate narratives. Aided and abetted by Tharrington Smith, the legal counsel hired by the board, that unfortunately was exactly the path that was chosen by this institution. One significant portion of the overpayment came from the contractor withholding and never extending raises to workers, some making as little as $8 an hour, for the first 3 months of the fiscal year, even though DPS paid the contractor to extend those raises for the full 12 months. Yet that very clear overpayment was explained away by hired legal minds who considered it speculative if DPS would have been able to make any warranted claim towards that and other rather clear breaches of contract. The internal investigation resulted in no tangible results around that contract. Much more can and will be said about this topic, but this evening, as a taxpayer and one of your constituents, I want to end by letting 3 of you know specifically that I am ashamed of your conduct on the board and believe that you have obfuscated your responsibility to this community. Ms. Byer, Mr. Lee, and Mr. Unruh, your documented eagerness to overlook corruption within this organization, in my opinion, renders you unfit for office. I've even heard from some of you that you, quote, represent an institution and must protect that institution. Hiding dishonest activity is not the type of representation this community deserves. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the consent items. However, I think we have public comment for one of the items. Let's see. Yeah, the disposal of disposal of surplus property. We have a comment from Mr. Callaway. And so before we go into the consent items approval, we'll hear the public comment for the item that's on consent, and then we'll vote on the consent items. Okay? 3 minutes, Mr. Callaway.
Okay, thank you. The last time that I can remember an update to the surplus property policy came in February 2017. It was actually the only result of that aforementioned investigation was a clarification of policy, because one of the administrators involved, I would use the word allegedly, but I'll use it to start with. They allegedly received a free set of tires put on a vehicle that they purchased via surplus, which really is a policy, problematic to policy in many respects, but they later rather arrogantly admitted to that, though they were seemingly exonerated because they've remained in position and et cetera. But there's a massive difference between creating good policy and making sure that it is implemented in effective ways and just ways. My mother taught middle school for 34 years, and she retired recently, 3 or 4 years ago. My grandmother taught school for 75 years, public school, both of them. 51 years, my grandmother is a full-time teacher, 24 more as a substitute teacher. I want this district more than anything to succeed, and it is your responsibility, I believe, as elected officials to oversee the administration of this institution. Dr. Mbenga, you've done outstanding things on the academic side. There are still operational issues. We hear tonight parents about sport issues. There are parents constantly decrying some of the state of the transportation and communication that this district runs into. But as far as this consent item, I do hope that you pass it. But it is it is disconcerting to see, especially tonight, the same exact policy that we discussed, and you all are very well aware from all the closed-door meetings and discussions that we've had in the past about it. But I'm eager to see some of the anchors that still drag in this district, that we pull those up and set ourselves free to move forward with even more speed. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Callaway. And indeed, we are succeeding. All right. Next item is the consent agenda for approval.
I move approval of the consent agenda items.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the consent agenda items, and those are the agreement to grant Duke Energy access to R.N. Harris Elementary to upgrade utility infrastructure servicing Durham Tech Campus, and new policy 6560, disposal of surplus property. This will serve as the second reading of that policy. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, please use the same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is operational services. Mr. Monk.
Good evening, Board. The first item is the unbudgeted county appropriations for capital improvement projects. This is an update. During the board's September the 12th meeting, you approved $6.5 million and authorized staff to seek that funding from the county with a list of projects. After discussion with the county and its bond council, several projects totaling $989,626 did not meet the qualification for limited obligation bonds. As such, we had to identify $989,626 worth of additional projects that would meet those obligations, which we've included in this in your packets. Therefore, staff is requesting authorization to go back to the county and replace the projects that we had taken originally with the projects listed in your packet today, which is titled 2019-2020 Supplemental Capital Improvement Projects List, totaling $989,626. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Let's see. Discussion. Questions?
And Mr. Kaysen and I had a chance to get a preview of this. I think the thing that was most concerning to us is that we have not yet identified funding sources for these projects that the county has decided that they can't be funded in this way. So I think all of those projects that are crossed through are still very much needed, a lot of that playground work, and we have not yet identified funding for those. So that's just what concerned me the most when we talked about it before. It's not really a question, is it? It's just, it highlights the need for maintenance money in addition to new construction money that we have in an ongoing way. And
Any other concerns? All right, let's vote it out.
Move approval. You need approval to request authorization to replace the projects on this list. So for the supplemental capital improvement projects.
Second.
There's a motion. There's a motion that has been properly made and properly seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously. Moving forward.
Thank you. The next item is the transfer of 2016 bond funds from the new Northern High School project ordinance to create a new Elementary School C project ordinance. During the joint Board of County Commissioners and Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, November the 12th, 2019, the board reached agreement to move forward with the construction of Elementary School C. using 2016 bond funds currently designated for the new Northern High School project. Therefore, $39,611,923 will need to be transferred from the new Northern High School project ordinance into a new project ordinance for Elementary School C. The remaining balance of the new Northern High School ordinance will be $4,968,149. We are in possession of 100% construction drawings for the new Elementary School C project, and the site plan has been approved by Durham City County Planning as of December 2018, and which remains valid for 5 years. Davis Kane Architects will complete their review of the existing construction documents using the 2018 building code in January of 2020, and we'll be able to begin the bid process in March of 2020, and we anticipate beginning construction May of 2020 and opening to students on August of 2022. Therefore, staff recommends that the board approve transferring $39,611,923 from the new Northern High School project ordinance to a new Elementary School C project ordinance, and authorize staff to request the Board of County Commissioners establish a project ordinance for Elementary School C using 2016 bond funds from the new Northern High School ordinance. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, let me say something first.
I'm sure that's what I was about to ask, yeah.
All right. So, those northern families, which I am one of them, who may get a link to this or may be listening now, let me assure you that the transfer of this money does not slow down in any way the construction of the new building. If you go back and look at our joint Board of Education and Board of County Commissioners meeting, we got confirmation and commitment that the money that we use for Elementary School C will be replenished so we can complete the project. This is only allowing us to go ahead and start on the construction of the new Elementary School C building. In fact, the county commissioners in the county has added Northern High School into their capital improvement plan. Yeah, their overall capital improvement plan. They voted on that in June of this year. So that money is there, it will be allocated, and nothing will slow us down in building a new building. So, before you hit send on that email that I'm sure you've already written, we have it covered. We have the money committed, and we will continue to move forward on the Northern High School new building very soon.
I appreciate that really important clarification, and I appreciate the advocacy that we all brought, that we've been bringing for years, but that resulted in some constructive work. I would like, if possible, for us to get a document signed by every commissioner and county manager reflecting that commitment, because I think that would be even more reassuring to our families.
I will reach out to Wendy Jacobs, the chairman of the
I appreciate that.
Durham Board of County Commissioners, and try to get that process started. I absolutely agree with you on that.
What I would like to see is not for them to draft it. I want you, Julius, to draft what it is they have committed to, what it is we're doing for Northern, then we send it over there for them to sign. Because we need to make it clear that, and you said something about August, I want to make sure we have those dates and everything in there. Northern, we are fighting to make sure the Knights have everything that we promised that they're going to have.
Sure. They look at me like, you look like you have something to say. Just this, the other tenor that we took from that joint meeting was that those children that we're talking about that will end up in the new Elementary C or Northern High School are not just our children. They also are their children. The county commissioners, we have separate boards, and sometimes it feels like we have separate agendas, but what we need for our students is the agenda of both boards. And we spent a lot of time coming to that realization, which was surprising that it had to be a realization this far down the road. But we, the two boards really made a commitment to work together for the good of our students. I just wanted to bring that out too, because we could come out of this thinking about like it was a wrestling match or something. But one thing that I was proud of that we did accomplish was just a real strong recommitment to working together as the two boards for the students and citizens that we all are responsible for.
So along those lines, Mr. Monk, I am a little concerned as we have a firm commitment on elementary school C, and I'm happy to see this and have us move forward. Could you just take a minute to review the reasons why we need elementary school F and why we need maintenance funds prior to 2022?
Yeah, sure. Excuse me, we'll cover F a little bit even more in the next agenda item, but our elementary school numbers have increased dramatically, and especially in the southern part of the county. And we already own property at elementary school F, and it's prime located to relieve some of that pressure in elementary from at least 7 of our elementary schools. So that's why we need F. Why we need the additional maintenance money is to what we talked about in the previous agenda item. Capital improvement monies are typically used to build new additions, do major renovations, things like that, not to change off in HVAC units, not to put in new filters, not to replace carpet, which was one of the items that we had up here before, even though the cost that we have to do for asbestos abatement and to put in the new flooring, and some of these were over $100,000. We're going to capitalize them, but the county and their bond council did not recognize them as capital assets. They said that's normal wear and tear. Whenever we only receive about $1.3 million to take care of 5.9 million square feet, there's going to be a lot of normal wear and tear with 33,000 students and a number of parents and families running through those facilities. It is almost impossible to maintain those facilities. And when that happens, we need capital funding even sooner, these large numbers, because the wear and tear is going to depreciate those capital assets even quicker. It also puts us in a bad predicament, especially during the time of the year like this. So we're going into a winter time frame. There's going to be testing. I know everyone's excited about winter break, but if a boiler breaks and it hasn't been replaced when it was supposed to, then, you know, it's going to cost us more money to expedite the shipping of the new boiler, to expedite having people to work overtime to install it. That is not being good stewards of our money when we can plan for these things ahead of time. And so we want to be clear with the general public that when we say things like deferred maintenance, that does not mean that we're not maintaining our facilities. It's an industry term that recognizes that when an asset is scheduled to be replaced, that it has not been replaced. And that makes us susceptible for risk of failure in inopportune times. So we're going to be asking for more money for the maintenance side so that we can make sure and put ourselves in a better place going forward in the future.
And just if folks aren't aware, can you delineate where Site C and Site F are? I think we use them without road names, and I think that's confusing sometimes.
So Site C is on Scott King Road, and Site F is at the corner of Roxborough and Martin Luther King.
Any other questions? All right. I'll accept a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the transfer of 2016 bonds from New Northern High School Project Ordinance to create new elementary school C project ordinance. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously. Next item.
Thank you. The next item is review of the DPS staff recommendations for fall 2020 elementary and middle school boundary adjustments. DPS administration presented recommendation for adjustments to Creekside, Parkwood Elementary, and Githens-Brogdon Middle School boundaries on 10/24. These recommendations will take effect, I'm sorry.
I apologize. Again, we have a public comment speaker.
Sure.
I do apologize for that, Mr. Monk. Mr. Kinghorn.
My name is Warren Kinghorn. My wife and I are the proud DPS parents of a daughter at Githens and a son at Forest View, and we live just north of Cornwallis Road, west of 15501. We appreciate and value your service on the board and your hard work on this rezoning process, and we know that you're tired at this point, and we know it's thankless work. As my wife Susan did at your last meeting here, I'm coming to plead with you not to split our family off from our nearest neighbors in this rezoning process. As we've said before, if we were being rezoned from Githens Middle School to Brogdon, along with others in our area, we would be fine with this and even welcome it. But I stand before you tonight alone because we are alone. On the map in front of you, you'll see the area west of 15501 that's slated to be rezoned to Brogdon under the current proposal in pink. It looks like a lot of land, and it is a lot of land, but the vast majority of that area is covered by Duke Forest, Duke School, and the Duke Lemur Center. There are only 2 small neighborhoods in that whole area, and to the best of our knowledge, we're the only family in this entire area who sends our children to DPS traditional schools. So the rezoning this area affects only us, or nearly only us, and it would tear us apart from all of our nearest DPS neighbors and from the peers and families with whom we have built such a rich community at Forest View these last 9 years. In the presentation tonight, you'll see 2 slides that show how moving the zoning line west of 15501 to Cornwallis Road will affect your policy goal of reducing overcrowding at Githens, and I'm including those tables on the back of your map. As you can see, it makes no appreciable difference. At most, 4 students, and likely fewer, will be rezoned from Githens to Brogdon over 3 years total, with no meaningful effect on enrollment or diversity at either school. So to be clear, moving the line from North Carolina 751, where it is now, to Cornwallis will not make any difference for overcrowding at Githens, but it will separate our family from our neighbors and our community. Keeping the line at 751 will not make any difference for overcrowding at Githens, but it would allow us to stay connected to our community. It makes no difference to you from a policy perspective, but it makes a massive difference to us. We would therefore ask you, plead with you, to amend the proposal presented to you so that the middle school zoning line remains at 751 west of 15501. Please listen to us and allow us to remain connected to our neighbors and to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Monk.
Okay. We presented adjustments for Creekside and Parkwood, as well as Githens and Brogdon at your October 24th meeting. These recommendations that we presented would take effect during the 2020-2021 school year. During that presentation, there were requests from board members to provide additional scenarios for the Githens-Brogdon boundary west of 15501, with us to focus on our operational impacts, in particular transportation. During the 11/7 public hearing, Durham residents shared several questions pertaining to the recommended boundary plan, which we've also included in your packet. I'm going to ask Mr. Palmer to come up, and we're going to review the recommendations that we've done so far. Our responses to the public hearing, and then once again state whatever our recommendation is for your consideration for approval tonight.
Good evening. Chairman Lee, Vice Chair Umstead, Ms. Fort Brown, Ms. Byer, Mr. Cason, Mr. Unruh, Mr. Sears. Over the last 3 months, we have spent an appreciable and considerable amount of time together.
Should be on a first-name basis by this point, I think.
On the placard behind me is a very subtle monument to the notion that character matters. And the first 3 character elements on that list, I think, speak to this project about citizenship, courage, and fairness. And so as we go through the review of the proposed recommended adjustments to the boundary for Creekside Elementary in relationship to Parkwood Elementary, and for Githens Middle School in relationship to Brogdon Middle School, I would suggest to you all that this project and this window of time that we've all worked through reflects each of those elements. At the public hearing that we had recently, we had members of our public come forth, even some of our very own students, and exhibit courage and citizenship to participate. I want to personally acknowledge the presence of the Kinghorns at each of our presentations publicly, as well as digitally, and suggest that that is exactly the type of participation and exactly the kind of involved, caring, committed, family-oriented approach that we must all embrace going forward. So before we proceed, I just wanted to first acknowledge those efforts, and then with that, let's proceed into the review. We will also be touching on, again, additional scenarios that were requested, as well as responses to the public hearing questions that were posed. So to revisit, when we are taking on this project, we have 2 core objectives: looking at the growth within Durham County and being mindful of equity implications for any adjustments to boundaries and student assignment. We approach that through a planning framework, clearly defining the problem, identifying the process to address the problem, and then reviewing the solutions that are available given that process and framework. We do so with the intent to engage with respect. We always intend to listen to understand, building trust through the process, and ultimately igniting and shaping a vision for Durham Public Schools' future. So we've done this over the course of a number of events, 7 in total, 4 public fora. In addition to that, the recommendations that were alluded to on October 24th, the public hearing that was held on November 7th, and the recommendations that we're coming forth with tonight. So first we'll talk about Creekside and the Parkwood Elementary School boundary and our recommendations accordingly. So to review, at present, Creekside is significantly overcrowded. Particularly, it is 200 students beyond its built capacity. We have maxed out the core capacity, which suggests that we cannot add additional mobile classrooms onto the campus. That induces instructional constraints and challenges for the principal on the site. So at this time, given the factors that Creekside is looking at, we must find a way to reduce the overall number of students at Creekside Elementary. As was previously discussed, we have a long-term sustainable solution to the east of Creekside, which is Elementary School Site C. Once again, that is through both the construction drawing as well as a site approval with city-county planning. And as we look at Site C, that's going to provide immediate relief to Creekside, but broader and long-term wise, that is really planting a sustainable solution in southern Durham to assist not only with Creekside, but also its adjacent schools that are also facing enrollment growth and challenges moving forward. It was discussed earlier Site F and what might that assist with respect to overcrowding and enrollment in Durham Public Schools. We anticipate Site F, which is at the intersection of Roxborough and MLK, could service an additional 800 students. So in total, between C and F, we're talking about 1,400 students that can be serviced beyond our current capacities. So the specific area we're looking to for a short-term gap to bring us to August of 2022 lies in the eastern portion of the Creekside boundary. You see that notated in the oval that we see here. That will, in the short term, adjust for about 50 students for this upcoming school year. It will save significantly on the transportation of those students from Creekside to Parkwood. We've looked at the travel distances and the implications for that. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of miles saved in travel time, as well as we project about 18,000 hours of students actually traveling on the roadways. So broadly speaking, this not only saves operationally and from a student travel time perspective, but it also aligns the boundaries with Parkwood and Delos Grove. We will need to continue to keep an eye on Parkwood as we're seeing renewed interest in Parkwood as a school. They're having their own successes as well. And so we'll need to ensure that academically and operationally we continue to support them. We've also modeled out the projected implications for race and ethnicity at the school levels. You see those data points here in the table. And this gives you a visual overview of what we're talking about. So this is really the Herndon Road corridor, which is effectively the purple area that you see here between Creekside and Parkwood. You can see its proximity to Parkwood in relationship to Creekside. And this is what the new boundary would look like. It is ultimately a small adjustment that buys us time until the new school is finished constructing. And at that time, this impacted region will be immediately adjacent to the new school. And our hope is, long-term, that the students that are impacted by this small adjustment will be the pioneers and leaders that help open this new school. With that, let's turn to Githens and Brogden and the middle school boundaries associated. As we're all aware, the Githens enrollment is also significantly over the built capacity of the campus. Presently, we have about 1,100 students at Githens. It's designed for about 900 students. Again, we're 200 students beyond the design capacity. As with Creekside, we can no longer add additional mobile classrooms to that campus. We're beyond that core capacity or how many students we can service in the cafeteria area. With no additional core capacity, nor potential to add on additional mobiles, we must also look at drawing down the student enrollment at Githens as well. The two viable options that we were considering were to the north and to the east of Githens. You can see with the Brogden boundary to the north, as well as the Lowe's Grove boundary to the east. On review of the adjacent middle schools, Lowe's Grove is nearing its own capacity as far as student enrollment, and we project long-term continued growth in student enrollment trends increasing in southern Durham in the Lowe's Grove boundary, which really, for our purposes, led us to looking at the Brogden-Githens boundary as our most reasonable approach to address the issue. So what we have recommended is to look at the Cornwallis corridor ultimately as an opportunity to align feeder patterns from moving east to west, Spalding and Lakewood, as well as a portion of Forest View. Now, it must be noted, presently, there are 288 students that attend Forest View and are boundaried for Brogden. So with respect to the broader picture, we want to acknowledge that a good portion of Forest View presently attends Brogden for its middle school option. We recommend this phasing in by cohort. So rather than taking students that presently attend Githens, picking them up and moving them to Brogden midstream, our recommendation is to allow them to matriculate and finish through their middle school boundary as it currently sits, and to phase in by year. So this upcoming year would be for rising 6th graders. The following year, you would see 6th and 7th graders, and ultimately 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in full implementation. This just gives you an aerial overview of the schools that we're discussing. And you can see here again, the consistency of Cornwallis providing a natural line across each of the 3 schools we're discussing. So the feeder pattern implications, it would adjust Brogdon's middle school from being serviced by 3 elementary schools up to 5, and Githin's from 6 to 4. So we're really kind of balancing things out with that respect. The implications for enrollment, again, when we are looking at reducing the enrollment at Githin's while increasing the enrollment at Brogdon. And we project that would have benefits both from a travel time perspective as well as operational efficiency perspective for DPS. So again, we've modeled out the race and ethnicity implications for each of the schools. And big picture, this is what it looks like from a geographic perspective. You can see presently the boundary that exists on the left-hand image. You see the adjustment area that we're looking at on the right-hand image. That's that salmon pink color.
The whole thing goes to Brogdon, huh? Everybody. Just drop the pick and pick and keep on. No. I can hold up the image. Right.
I believe your head on my body would be a great
Yeah.
matchup. That would be good.
That'd be perfect. Okay. Just continue.
Sure. So, to summarize the boundary recommendations, we have looked at this geographically as well as demographically. Moving into the corresponding steps, we were also asked to look at additional scenarios, particularly with respect to the area west of 15501. So in addition to the recommendation and the plan that we've put forth along the Cornwallis corridor, we've also looked at 4 additional scenarios. Those scenarios include looking at if we were to bring the line all the way down to 15501, if we were to bring it along Pickett, along Cornwallis, and along 751 to look at what that would be potentially operationally. So without those images, I'm sure you can all imagine the let me back up just for a second. One of the things that stands out on this map that's here is that the current boundary of Brogdon is the smallest of all of our middle schools. And yet it has ample capacity, 925 students. So part of this exercise, part of this process of adjusting boundaries is really calibrating the spatial boundary with how many students can a school hold. So you'll see we're growing the Brogdon boundary, but it will still be our smallest of the middle school boundaries.
You can try.
Should we keep going?
Yes.
Okay.
I think also just for anyone in the audience and the people who are watching, this presentation is available online, so you can follow along with us, even though the PowerPoint is not working. DPSNC.net.
Okay. You try it? Okay. Do we need to flip the image?
They'll do it.
They'll do it, okay. Okay, so it was requested we look at additional scenarios for the area that is effectively west of 15501, running from north and south. And that is effectively the Forest View elementary boundary with respect to how it feeds into the Brogdon boundary. We have looked at this along 15501, again, constructing additional scenarios, and in doing so, looking at the transportation, facility, and ultimately diversity and ethnicity perspectives at the school levels. So this image here reflects what those lines are. Again, we were looking on the western edge at multiple scenarios. And ultimately, throughout each of these scenarios, one of the things that stands out, and it must be noted, is that in Forest View's broader boundary, it has intense clustering on its students to the northern edge of Forest View and to the southern edge of Forest View. So effectively, the majority of Forest View students, of the approximately 700, about 500 live split between the LaSalle border, sort of to the north side, that presently attends Brogden already for middle school, and to the southern border and south of 15501 near Garrett Road. So if you can imagine, the least dense part of Forest View is really the Irwin Road corridor that runs over there. What that means is that the majority of those students are spread out spatially, and ultimately only about 50% of those students ride the bus, which is some of our lowest numbers in the district. So we could truly run 1,000 different combinations of bus routes throughout this region, and effectively, no matter how we route this, whether we were to draw any of these boundary lines, they're about equivalent with respect to our operational efficiency. Now, with respect to passenger vehicle ride times, we did see where we have significant congestion heading from Durham into Chapel Hill in the morning commute times. We lose about 15 minutes in the morning period especially. What that means is you're coming from effectively the Forest View area into Githens, you're running directly into traffic heading into Chapel Hill. So ultimately, from a transportation perspective, any of these scenarios are relatively equivalent. From a passenger vehicle perspective, there might be some marginal benefits for Forest View if it were to, in total, attend Brogden, simply because of travel congestion. So this gives you a sense of our student level enrollment and capacity utilization by each of these scenarios. Right, as we go further south with the boundary between Githens and Brogdens, we're bringing along more students. But again, remember, the overall capacity of the Brogden campus is about 925 students. So what that suggests is that over time, as we do full implementation in 22, 23, we want to be careful not to induce additional capacity issues at Brogden as we attempt to help Githens. Right? Now, notably, as we look at the race and ethnicity implications, the further south we go within the scenarios, the greater effect we have with respect to balancing out our race and ethnicity levels by scenario across both school campuses. So this is one of those considerations, as we discussed at our last meeting, where we must look at operational considerations as well as our overall objective of having equitable, diverse schools. So moving into the public hearing comments and questions and ideas that were posed. The first question that was posed at the public hearing on November 7th, again, that was held at Spalding Elementary's auditorium, was how did we engage parents that were not able to make the forum? One of the things that we did from a community engagement and public affairs perspective was intentionally select to present at schools and communities that were impacted by the different scenarios and potential boundary adjustments. So rather than holding events here at DPS or perhaps at a large sort of central location, we were explicitly going to Lakewood Elementary, Spalding Elementary, and for Creekside and Parkwood, we did hold that at Jordan, partly out of capacity considerations. But in addition to that, we went through and ensured that we had a digital presence, so the information was available online. And again, we had flyers that were sent home with students that were impacted and made phone calls when needed, as well as interpreting through Punjabi and Arabic. We then are scheduled to have a follow-up meeting. We will actually be at Lakewood's PTA on December 3rd, coming up shortly here. And really, through this process, we anticipate, particularly with respect to parent involvement and community engagement, to only enhance this as we go forward. We've spoken previously about some of our initiatives and efforts to enhance that. And we see really that the digital communication is as important as the analog communication. So we will be there in person, but we will also make sure that everything is available, both from a translation perspective as well as from a transparent perspective online. Now, the next question that we had was that, if we were to move 50 students from Creekside to Parkwood, will we not also be, engendering or creating a problem with respect to capacity at Parkwood? And the answer to that briefly is that our projected enrollment at Parkwood right now is 531 students for next fall. So to bring on the additional 50 students, we do realize that each of those families need to make their own individual choice, but we project even if all of the families that were impacted were to choose Parkwood, we'd still be right at Parkwood's overall capacity. So we feel comfortable with that recommendation, also acknowledging that, again, we need to keep our eye on Parkwood long term. There is growth in southern Durham at large, and the Parkwood area especially is appealing for school-age families given its proximity to I-40 and the home values in the area. So we just want to, big picture, continue to look at Parkwood and make sure that we're taking care of those students as well. Now, an idea was proposed by one of our students that asked the question, could we take on, rather than adjusting Creekside and Parkwood and reassigning current Creekside students, could we actually just take 50 incoming kindergartners and assign them to Parkwood from Creekside, which would be about a third of Creekside's incoming cohort, their incoming class. One, we want to acknowledge that that's the kind of flexible thinking that we all need to really embrace. I will also acknowledge and note that, as we show here, well, this year that would be 50 students. That would grow to beyond 100 students next year. And we go back to, we don't want to have unintended consequences when we try to help one school. We transfer that problem to the next school. We want to be balanced and look big picture on what this is going to do. So the short-term answer to that is, that's a good idea. We just need to think more comprehensively about, as we go forth, that we don't create additional problems. And the last consideration was, could we just simply put more mobiles on the Creekside campus? And that's certainly an idea that we have utilized historically within Durham Public Schools. When we've faced capacity issues, we've put mobiles on campuses as recently as last year. The challenge with that is, especially with respect to Creekside, that school is beyond its core capacity by a significant number. Again, we're well beyond 200 students beyond its intended design capacity. So to continue to put additional mobiles on the campus is not an option. Presently, there are 8 mobile classrooms and 2 mobile restrooms. So we have maxed out the mobile inventory we can do at Creekside at this time. So with that, we wanted to review the recommendation. Once again, discuss additional scenarios that were under consideration as well as their operational implications, and address any questions or ideas that were posed at the public hearing. So at this time, we're here for any questions or feedback you may have. And once again, thank you for working with us closely through this. I must say, on a personal level, having gone through this process with over 20 boards of education, the commitment that you all have given to this process, the questions and the challenges that you've put before us are, from a staffing perspective, appreciated. It is not easy work, but it's work we must do.
Okay, board members. Who would like to go first? Steve.
So thank you. I want to commend the administration for the thoroughness of the work. I've seen a lot of this kind of work over the many years, and this is by far the most thorough and thoughtful analysis. So thank you for that. I also just wanted to say to the parents that have communicated with us that I've been consistently impressed by the tone of the communication, even when there's disagreement, and there's been disagreement. The overall tone has been positive, acknowledging the difficulty of the choices, and I'm very appreciative of that. I also just, before getting into specifics, I just want to state, as we stated briefly at the meeting with the county commissioners, one of the things that's clear about this is that we need a new middle school in the southern part of the county, and that I don't want to see that slip off the radar. Everything we're talking about are adjustments that are not going to get us away from the need for a middle school in that part of the county. And then I'm sure we'll go on to a high school. Yes, my friends at Jordan and Riverside right now are emailing me saying, "What about?" Okay, so I just wanted, for myself, I'm prepared to support what the administration has brought to us, with one exception, and that is the the Cornwallis boundary, that my personal preference would be to follow that scenario one, the where we follow 751. To me, that is every much a natural border as Cornwallis. Takes a little longer to say, but geographically there's no appreciable difference between the two. The presentations when we were at C.C. Spalding convinced me that in particular the Lemur neighborhood, if you will, is in fact part of the Colony Park neighborhood and has no other. I mean, there's nobody else near that, and so to me it's different than a scenario in which we would divide a neighborhood. Here we're actually just splitting off not even a handful of families. That, according to the charts here, makes zero difference in the plan. And while I am fully aware that these are hard choices and that it's hard to say to some families, we're just going to have to do it, and it's tough, and to other families, well, I can see why we differ. In this case, I'm convinced that we should follow scenario one for that boundary, and that's what I'm prepared to support. Finally, I have a question, and I don't know how we even answer this, but certainly we have a number of emails. So now I'm switching from the elementary school to the middle school, which is just so the viewing audience at home is following the bouncing ball. On the families down in that southern part that we're reassigning. Sorry, I'm going from middle school to elementary school. They're reassigned to Parkwood. The question that we've gotten several times is whether we're going to end up asking families to move to be at 3 different elementary schools. They're at Creekside now. We ask them to move to Parkwood, and then we open a new elementary school, and they're in. They believe they're close enough that they would be reassigned into that. Do we have a response to that? Do we have? And please.
Well, and to be consistent with both practice and policy, if a family were attending presently Creekside, if a student is at Creekside and under this recommended plan is adjusted to Parkwood, as we have said, as in the illustration of Githens and Brogdon, right, that we're encouraging the board to allow students that are at a certain grade level to finish through. Now, being mindful that under this recommendation, we're looking at only kindergarten through 2nd grade. We're not addressing 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and in part, the reason for that being is that we want students that would not benefit from the opening of the new campus, the new school site C, to be able to remain at Creekside. This is really trying to look at students that could theoretically benefit from the opening of the new school, particularly given their proximity to the new school. Now, having said that, if our recommendation to the board would be if a family is being adjusted to Parkwood and would like to continue through their elementary school education, that would be consistent with precedent and board policy. So to that effect, families that would like to stay on at Parkwood and not move to the new school, that again, we're looking at August of 2022, we would embrace and recommend that strategy.
That they stay at Parkwood, and so
if they so chose.
If they choose. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Matt.
Just very quickly, I also support the option that Steve discussed, and just feel like we can humanize the board a little bit when we share our own personal information. And as a Lakewood family that has been looking south towards Githens for years with a 4th grader, thinking about middle school, this is a big impact for me, not just as a board member, but as a a member of that community, and I don't put many lenses on school choice because I believe all of our schools offer excellent choice. But in my very limited investigation of Brogdon, I'm thrilled with the progress that we're seeing there. It matches the progress we're seeing across the district, and so there are no losers in this process. This is hard, obviously, but I am fully confident in the educational outcomes for our kids throughout the Parkwood, Creekside, Githens, Brogdon, Lakewood, and all the other school transitions. So thank you, district, for doing this hard work, and forward.
So I appreciate y'all's team and the really attentive detail to listening to this community and working with this community, and the different scenarios that we've run. I also, like Steve, support that 751 split on that piece near Cornwallis. I think it's because I've lived over there and know that that is mostly woods, and that small group of families seems to relate more to that neighborhood across there. And I think that's in keeping with our policy and guiding principles from the past to try to keep neighborhoods together. I do want to acknowledge to the families that are impacted by the proposed Creekside shift that I think we're asking a lot of families. I think once our families are in kindergarten, once they've spent a day in that school, that is their school. And I totally understand why this is going to be challenging for a lot of families, and that I totally hear everything that's coming through in the public comments, in the emails, and I look forward to ways that we can reach out to those families, work with them and instructional leaders, and get in there and make sure that they can very quickly feel just as passionate and involved in the Parkwood community. Because I think they're going to find great things within that community, but I think it's going to be hard. I mean, it is a genuine shift, and children love their schools and families love their schools. So I do want to acknowledge that we have heard that, and I totally understand that feeling. And I want to look for us to look and listen and work with our community on supporting those children in that change.
I also want to say thank you to the administration. I feel like the analysis that we have done on this work has been thorough, and I appreciate all of the different conversations that we've had with the community. I hope you also hear that we are listening, and we heard your feedback, went back to room, said, okay, how do we do this and move this line? And you see responses to multiple scenarios. So I think this is a starting place to where we're going to have a lot deeper conversations, and I hope we can keep this level of dialogue for the community, because that's going to be really important. So I just want to offer that thankful appreciation for this work, and it's going to be hard as we continue to move forward and think about more lines, but I think we're setting up the right processes. So in community, I encourage y'all to continue to reach out to us and talk with us.
I also want to thank the members of the community that have spent time with us as we've gone out to you to talk about what we're looking at, and you're giving us feedback. And again, as Steve was saying earlier, the conversation has been very, very honest, but not confrontational. And that's, my wife was saying, considering previous years, how boring this board is, and that's a good thing, because we're all working together to do some things. And that's always been something that's important to me. It's the way I was as a teacher, and it's the way I hope to be as a board member too, that all voices impacted should be heard. For the elementary school side, it's really difficult to ask some of our students to have to go to several schools, but this is unfortunately something that we as a district had just been holding off of for many years in one hand, but also we ask for that Elementary School C back in 2016, prior to my coming on the board, and we're not granted that money from the county to make that happen. So it's a way to try to mitigate that delayed reaction. I also want to thank the administration again for spending those extra times and extra meetings that we had to talk deeply about this. And everyone that came to us has been heard, and we've been talking about what you're saying. I am concerned about what type of precedents we set as we look at the different scenarios, because we're going to take on a much larger conversation in the spring about looking at the entire district. You know, this is a good test case, and the way we're starting this with the civility, the camaraderie, but there are going to be some harder decisions than this one coming forth, and somebody's got to make those hard decisions. And I just want to make sure that we are considering how we do business, and that we are consistent when we do this. So again, the many ways that you have responded as administration to come back and show us different ways every time we kind of, well, what about this? What about that? Has been commendable. I mean, it's something that is, I know, not easy to do. And I want to make sure that we are following what best practices are when we make these decisions. So again, it's hard work, but that's why we're here, to make these hard decisions. Thank you.
Chair, I said I wasn't going to say anything, but I feel compelled to say we respect our community. We respect, first of all, your ability to look at the decisions that our talented staff makes and ask for adjustments. And I respect the fact that this board has been the kind of board that will say, we're listening and we are asking that we do this extra work. You guys have worked tremendously hard to make adjustments and play out scenarios, and change is really hard. We're not trying to be like our neighbors to the east that every year your children go to different schools. We're not trying to do that. We haven't done anything since merger. When the city and county merged in 1992, county and city, we haven't done anything since then because we've been basically kind of afraid to do anything. So this is a bold step, and we're going to have to swallow hard. When Lomans left, I was hurt. Y'all don't even remember Lomans. The back room, you don't even remember it. I was hurt. When Dillard's left, you know. So so these are things we are going. It's going to be fine because eventually we're going to make sure that we make the adjustments. And I'm so glad that our community has been civil in this. But I think that's because we've been respectful as well. But we're going to have to make a decision tonight so we can move forward. And hopefully it'll be one that everybody can live with. Thank you, Durham.
Okay, so school board work is really hard work. It is emotional, you know, as parents, as citizens. Everything that we do here has an effect. And we are elected here to make hard decisions. And this is one of those hard decisions where we can place ourselves in the shoes or in the kitchen tables of the families involved. In one of the meetings, I asked one of the families, you know, we had a map, and I said, where exactly do you live? Because I didn't quite know. And they showed me, and I wanted to do some investigation, you know, looking at mapping and everything like that. And I continued to listen and listen to the administration. And by the way, I agree with everyone up here that the administration has done an awesome job in the statistics, the graphs, the putting yourselves out there in front of families, you know, advertising emails, you know, answering phone calls, answering questions. But I hear us saying, you know, we have to listen to our community. We have to, you know, listen, we have to have that compassion. But let's not forget, if we take a step back, this is the result of us listening to a community, right? The entire reason that we started saying we have to do something in the short term is because the overwhelming emails of overcrowding that we hear at Githens and at Creekside. We're listening to our community. I have a concern with moving the boundary line to 751. My concern is I don't want our board, kind of following what Mr. Cason said, our board to get into the setting the precedence of saying, well, we'll just etch out this area, or we'll etch out this area, you know, for this. Again, this is hard work, and it's uncomfortable work. It's uncomfortable for the people who aren't even moving, who wouldn't even move. The reason I liked the Cornwallis corridor is because it is an absolute natural boundary in our county, for this area, at least half of our county. It is basically a straight line, and we can do north and south of it. We don't find these little gerrymandered areas, and I'm not trying to equate this with what's happening in the state. Okay, it's just, that's just the term, right? That's just a term of it, right? You can see in some of our school boundaries a lot of cutouts of neighborhoods, cutouts of streets, you know. Even when we were going to Lucas, like when we moved in our neighborhood, we were scheduled for Carrington. About halfway through elementary school, we actually realized, oh, we're actually at Lucas. And we looked at the map, and one half of our street of Danube goes to Lucas, and the other side of the street goes to Carrington. It's a natural boundary. It is a natural north-south boundary, and Old Oxford kind of cuts out. It's a natural boundary as well. I like the idea of natural straight line boundaries. No one said that anything with student reassignment would be easy or easy to take. We knew what we would hear. We knew we'd hear from families. When we start the entire district student reassignment or boundary line investigations, we're going to hear the same thing. I'm not in favor of setting a precedence of carving out little areas simply for one or two students, because we don't know what the future holds for the area or what that means for population in the future. So I'm prepared to support the administration in the lines of Cornwallis being the southern boundary for Brogdon and Githens. I support the administration on the Creekside boundary as well. And that's where I stand.
So Mike, can we look at slide number 45 to talk more about your concerns there? And I understand, can you make, it's 45 on the bottom of my packet. I don't know what one it is for you.
One of our scenarios?
It says boundary solution, adjust Githens Brogdon. It's got a map on it, Matthew. I don't know where I found it in here.
45, yep.
Going backwards?
This is keep going. Keep on. Stay up, stay up. That's it. Nope. It's the one right after the circles. The one with the ovals on it. That's it. That's it.
So this is the slide that helps me the most. And, you know, when we first moved back to Durham, we lived in Loch Nora, which is back in there. When I used to drive between, you know, going to school at UNC, I would take Curly Road back the back way, right? But if you haven't been in that area of Durham much, that's forest, and this map shows you kind of where all that Duke forest is. I almost think that in this area of town where there's so few kids living, that a more reasonable boundary, if we were going to make a natural boundary, would be one side or the other of Duke Forest, right? I mean, almost like if you had a lake or you bumped up against a river or some kind of something or other. But we've got a big piece of land with not many children in it. And that's why, of all the scenarios that they developed, the 751 kind of respects that forested land and keeps those two tiny chunks of residential stuff moving south where I related when I lived on that side of town more than north. And it splits that forest land, which, as far as we know, has no plans to be developed and will always be forest.
Do we know that?
Yeah.
Do we know that? Go ahead.
I know the director of Duke Forest, and I know their commitment to research and land acquisition and their history of not selling and developing. We don't know that for sure, I think, but having just seen that person 2 days ago and talked with them about land acquisition, I thought I'd add that to the conversation.
So I mean, for me, the definition that our chair was saying about carving out neighborhoods does not necessarily apply in this case. I mean, that, as Natalie was saying, that forest is somewhat of a natural boundary. I'm just saying in the future, I would not want to carve out one neighborhood when there's a boundary as obvious as Cornwallis Road. But I could support the 751 scenario if I was given the impression that I wouldn't earlier. I have concerns for the future, but this is one case where, because of the forest itself, I could see that as being a natural boundary. And there's not, again, it's Duke Forest. It's not just a piece, it's just not some woods. This is part of a private university that has research interests, so I'm not that worried about it being developed in the future. Too far north, for one thing. So I could support Steve's consideration, if that needs to be made public and clear.
Mr. Judge, I appreciate the concerns, and I will say that I was also in support of the Cornwallis boundary. I liked the simplicity of it until looking more carefully at the lack of any surrounding neighborhood. So I think there are two precedents, and without diminishing the concerns, I think it's an appropriate concern about dipping into the details and that not having the board do that. But the other precedent is, if we're going to ask the community to participate and bring us their thoughts and their proposals, to me, to not respond simply because we're saying we don't want to set a precedent of making change, in some ways sets, to me, the wrong precedent. It's going to be hard either way. I mean, whatever we do on this isn't going to make anything easier or harder on the next round. Those are going to be much more challenging. I think we're much more likely to end up with non-straight lines. We're going to end up with neighborhoods cut in two and so on. But this is not carving out a neighborhood. To me, it's restoring a group of homes to the neighborhood that they're part of. And so, you know, so that's where I am, and I appreciate the concerns on the other side. I can see why people would raise them.
Okay. We'll accept the motion.
So I would like to move that we adopt the administration recommendation, however, with the adoption of scenario 1 as into that recommendation.
Scenario 1 has the 751 boundary, correct? And the rest of the...
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Of course.
If we can see.
That was
That
it.
was there.
Yeah. Okay.
To the question posed, yes, scenario 1 is the 751 boundary in this scenario west of 15501 for Githens Middle School and Brogden Middle School.
Okay.
Second, if that's.
All right. It's been moved and properly seconded that we adopt the scenario 1 proposal from the administration for the student reassignment plan for Githens and approve the student reassignment as proposed by the administration for Creekside.
I have some unreadiness. I just need to know if I just need to be clear with all these maps and everything. I get confused. I just need to know if is this the recommendation? The recommendation I think we have from administration deals with Cornwallis. Is that correct?
The administration recommended Cornwallis.
Cornwallis, okay.
But the motion on the floor
Is for-
to
for-
adopt 751.
751. I got you.
Right.
Okay. I'm ready.
That's correct?
It is, but just for clarity, that Cornwallis is still one of the borders.
Yes, the
Yes.
southern part is Cornwallis, and it's split,
Cornwallis,
goes up to
and that's
751.
751, correct.
That's correct. That's the motion on the floor.
Right. And my unreadiness is very much like what my colleagues have said. Now, once we do this, when we start moving lines again, we are setting a precedent to say that whether or not we listen, of course, our demographers, our operations people have told us that it is a scenario that is feasible. It is not one that they recommended. It is one that is feasible. So I think we're going to have a lot of work cut out for us in terms of redistricting. And I just want us to look down the road. Or when this is a very small project, when it comes to the bigger ones, and people are listening and watching.
Any more comments? All right. Oh, sorry. Were you?
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm very appreciative that you were able to acknowledge the work of the staff. I remember when I came on board, I said redistricting, this kind of work is going to be really hard. And I appreciate and I have faith in our board as we're going to move forward and looking at the whole district. That's how we're going to get your support. As the staff, they'll be working, getting feedback from community, making adjustment. I have confidence in our board that you're going to support the work as we're going to move forward. But it's not going to be easy. I just wanted to reiterate that it's going to be really hard.
Thank you. Okay, the motion's still on the floor. So I'll say, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-3. All right. Next item on our agenda is the resolution from Resolution urging the state to take action to remit civil penalties unconstitutionally withheld from North Carolina's public schools. I will. Man, this is a long one. And I signed it.
And let's just put some context to it. This is money that the state has owed us, and we're to use it for technology. 2 years ago, we spoke to it, and we asked that the state repay us this money that is ours. It is already on the books. What happened is they used it for something else, and they have not replaced it. So we're not asking for money that has not already been allocated, that has not already been paid. This money has been paid to the state in fines and forfeitures. They already had it. University of North Carolina gave us a portion of the money. The rest of the money, legislature used for something else. So we are looking at our technology needs, and this money is distributed based on ADM, based on how many kids we have in our district. So that depends on, and it's for all 115 districts in the state of North Carolina. And we have been, I think, very cordial. I think we have been very, I want to say we've been slow on the draw. We haven't been pestering. We've allowed them to take this time to do it, and they haven't done it. And so after a while, the time will be up, and we won't be able to get the money. We won't be able to get the money. And this is money that they have collected that is due to not to Durham Public Schools, but North Carolina Public Schools.
Nice if it was Durham.
But we'll get our part.
Right. All right, so this is yes, sir.
I'm ready.
Okay, this is a fairly long resolution.
I want paragraph 4.
Everybody wants
I
that.
get it, because if we
right?
start down there, I get that. So, all right, here we go. We're gonna read it as usual.
Resolution urging the state to take action to remit civil penalties unconstitutionally withheld from North Carolina's public schools. Whereas the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled that under Article 9, Section 7 of the North Carolina Constitution, that the public schools are entitled to the clear proceeds of specific civil penalties collected by various state agencies, including the Department of Revenue, the Department of Transportation, the campuses of the University of North Carolina, the Department of Commerce, the Employment Security Commission, state-owned psychiatric institutions in the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And
Whereas in 1997, the General Assembly created the Civil Penalty and Forfeiture Fund in General Statute 115C-457.1 and provided that the clear proceeds of all civil penalties collected by state agencies should be paid into the fund. And
Whereas in 2008, the NC Superior Court, upon remand from the NC Supreme Court, ruled that state agencies were in clear violation of the state constitution by improperly withholding $747,883,074 that should have been paid to the Civil Penalty and Forfeiture Fund from January 1996 through June 2005. And
Whereas the 2008 court order lists the amount to be paid by each state agency to public schools. Department of Revenue, $583,340,162. Department of Transportation, $104,071,323. That school with the light blue, 42 million. It says UNC, but $42,368,982. Employment Securities Commission, $18,017,467. Department of Health and Human Services, $53,955. Department of Corrections, $10,404. DENR, DEQ, $20,781. And
Whereas the legislature declared that such funds should be used exclusively for school technology and appropriated to the individual public school units on a per pupil basis, and
Whereas public school units are in dire need of additional technology funding, and
Whereas, according to the Department of Public Instruction, DPI, only 38% of North Carolina's 115 local school districts in 2018-2019 reported having achieved the state's 4-year replacement goal for student devices, Chromebooks, iPads, laptops, etc. And
Whereas more than 30% of school districts in 2018-19 reported having no resources budgeted for replacement devices, and
Whereas investing in current technology is necessary to achieve the 21st century education that utilizes innovative, collaborative, and learner-centered experiences, and
Whereas since 2008, the public schools have received only $18.1 million, approximately 2.5% of the total amount owed. And
whereas the defendants have not fulfilled their constitutional obligation to make up for the remaining $729,699,823 that was diverted from public schools, and
whereas based on an initially allotted ADM by DPI, $15,242,973 is the amount that DPS would generate as its portion of the remaining $729,699,823, and
whereas on March 6, 2019, a consent order was entered to extend the enforceability of the existing unpaid 2008 judgment to prevent it from expiring, and
whereas the plaintiffs have tried to work with state leaders for almost 15 years to find an amicable resolution to this matter, and
whereas the plaintiffs continue to seek a win-win outcome and remain willing and ready to work on a mutually beneficial resolution.
therefore, be it resolved that the Durham Public Schools Board of Education respectfully requests that the General Assembly to approve during its January 2020 session a multi-year plan to pay the remaining $729.7 million judgment for civil penalties that should have gone to public school units for school technology, but were diverted to other purposes in violation of the North Carolina Constitution.
adopted by the Durham Public Schools Board of Education this 14th day of November 2019, signed by Michael D. Lee, Board Chair. Okay.
move approval.
not the
Second.
14th, is it?
Well, that's
That's when he signed it.
when I signed it. So
No. So we're approving.
we're still approving.
Ex
It's
post
been
facto, is it? Yes. Okay.
There's a second?
Been moved and properly seconded. We approve the resolution urging the state to take action to remit civil penalties unconstitutionally withheld from the North Carolina public schools. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. It passes unanimously.
And our public, please know, we said $15 million is owed to Durham Public Schools. And if you know that we've got teachers right now who don't have enough computers to do the test with, these are the things that we need the state to come through with. So we welcome your letters to your legislatures, the calls that you may make. You know, you can just go online and find their numbers. And I found out that they really like for you to call them specifically, not to do these letters, these form letters, but just go on and call and write and tell them that we need specifically Durham's money. Thank you so much.
Okay, so the next item, which was 9.5, was the meeting schedule. Mr. Unruh, could you speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm concerned about the December meeting schedule. I'm concerned about asking staff to come on December 21st. I won't be here December 21st. I already have tickets to be in California. So the rest of you can show up.
Okay, all right. We get the story.
I think when you
19th.
19th. That's all right. I'll still be in California. I did check the calendar, but that was the only ticket I could get. But I was also confident we were not going to have a meeting on that time. It's too close to the holiday. So I would like to suggest two modifications. One, that we cancel the December 19th meeting. And anybody who was going to meet on the 21st, cancel that also. But also, if we only have one, which would give us one meeting in December. And right now, that meeting is scheduled for the 5th.
Right.
And, which is 3 days after the Thanksgiving holiday. So what I would like to suggest is that we move have one December meeting, have it on the 12th. I think that's 5 plus 7, yes. And that would give the administration more time to prepare whatever we need to get done, and still allow us to not bring staff in here just before the winter holiday.
That plan makes way too much sense for me. I will not be supporting it. It's way too nice to staff.
Too much stress.
Way too gracious. I'd make a motion to support that adjustment to the calendar with the support of the chair and the board.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and probably seconded that we cancel our two scheduled board meetings for December, combine them into one meeting on the 12th for December. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. Passes unanimously.
I think we see smiles from the staff that's here.
Look at there. Wow.
They were just hoping we wouldn't actually have any meetings in December.
Right.
That's where they thought you were going.
That's where we thought you were going.
All right, so with that, I'll accept a motion to go into closed session.
Move that we go into closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
Second?
It's been moved and properly seconded that we go into closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. We're now in closed session.
backward engineer it and figure out how it got there.
It's beautiful. Nicholas was excited.
Yeah.
We're on.
All right, let's pick it up. We're live.
We're live.
We're live, folks. We're live. All right. We're now back in open session. Dr. Mabenga.
Board members, I'm here to seek your approval for the personnel report as discussed at the closed session.
Move approval for the personnel report for November 21st, 2019.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the personnel report dated November 21st, 2019. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please use the same sign. It passes unanimously. And with that, we are adjourned.
You want your cuteness quote?